Hey guys, I'm Chris,
And I'm Mike.
and welcome back to this week's No Limits, the Scot Harvath podcast. What's new this week, Mike?
Chris, I've been editing this podcast to push out all of our TJ Newman coverage over on the Thriller Pod. Thank you for doing that interview with her.
Of course. It was a lot of fun. She's a very good interview. She was very kind. We brought up some things or I brought up some things. Well, obviously, they're both of our words, but that she had not thought about before. So I think it went well. Hopefully, you guys go give it a listen. Hopefully, you guys go out and buy her book. Really excited. She's like, I'm really sorry that we didn't get you an ARC. Like, definitely let me know next year, and I'll make sure you guys get the advanced reading copy. So yeah, by the time you're listening to this, worst case scenario will have been published. Check that out. Go check out her first two, Falling and Drowning, which we also just covered on our No Limits Thriller podcast feed. You can go check that out. However, we're here on the Scot Harvath podcast because if you didn't listen to our last episode on this, you should immediately stop and go listen to it, because we had none other than Brad Thor on to talk his new book, Shadow of Doubt. I want to say Shadow of a Doubt, but it's not. Shadow of Doubt. I've done that a million times. I probably will do it again.
I've had to edit out that doubt from both you and I because we just keep saying it. And we got to break that habit here tonight.
We do. But we got book 23. By the time you listen to this, will probably be a little bit more than a week since pub date. Actually, we're recording a little bit more. So it would be like 2 weeks in pub date. Hopefully you bought the book, you've digested it. You can come listen to our thoughts. And yeah, we got book 23. It's hard to imagine book 23 in this series. And
wild.
We're not too far from finishing the series. I was looking at like the books we have to
6
go.
or 7?
Yeah, that's it.
We're close. That's crazy.
I know. We did a lot like in a row. Like we did like 4 or 5 in a row this year. So
we did bursts. That's why I think this felt a little quicker than the Mitch Rapp podcast. We really stuck to one book a month, and sometimes even slower than that when we had other things going on.
I know we've been cranking out books. It's crazy.
There's been some months where we've done 3 Brad Thor books, and combined with the Thriller podcast, we've maybe covered 4 or 5 books in a month the last few months.
I know
we're cranking.
It's insane. Yeah, we're listening to so many books that we got throttled from listening to this book. That's why we're recording this a little bit later, because we had gotten the ARC. We'd read half of it, but obviously you guys know Mike's expecting a baby. I am getting ready to go on an international trip for work, so I needed to wait for that audio. And
where are you headed? Belarus?
Oh no, hell no.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm headed to the Netherlands.
Okay.
For about 11 days. But yeah, so
11 days, dang.
Everand throttled us. We are reading so much.
Yeah. It's a great app. I would still recommend it to everybody, but didn't realize there was a limit on how many books you can read in a month. And since we share the podcast account, I guess we were racking up that number pretty quickly. So it's like,
I'm wondering if it's counting like, because when I read it and you read it, is that like 2?
Most likely. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's number of devices, kind of how Netflix is doing it now.
It's genre. It's not just like author. Because I tried to hop over and do another author. Like, oh, I can do that. And they're like,
you can do a different
how about
genre.
these ones? How about these ones?
You could read some nonfiction. You can do some romance novels, but it won't let you do any sort of military espionage thriller because we're doing too many of them.
Yeah.
Kind of crazy. But you're right. Shadow of Doubt. I got us off track a little bit. Some things I really like about this book. Other things, I'm hesitant here, Chris. I'm not sure how we're going to go. And for some reason, I just came up with a barbecue analogy. I don't know. I must be hungry. I really like that this book is like a serving of a massive ribeye steak. It's like sitting in front of you, mouth-watering, juicy. It's got the sides, the mashed potatoes, the gravy, the asparagus, the cream spinach. It's all there. Like, it is a beautiful display. But then you just nibble on it. Like, I'm nibbling on it, and I just want to take a big old bite. And for some reason, I'm not getting into that bite. And then there's a whole nother part of the book, which I really love. You know, the baby back ribs, they're sitting there nice and juicy. They're covered in it. They're still smoking hot off the smoker. And you want to tear into those, but then again, you just kind of nibble on it. I'm between two worlds here. I got two things that I absolutely love in this book, but then those two things don't go as far as I would want them to. So I
Okay.
don't know, Chris. What was your first reaction finishing this one?
Yeah, so I guess we should just preemptively say that, this it's getting really good reviews on Goodreads and Amazon. I'm seeing a lot of people on social media talk it up. And one of the things we kind of talked with Brad, and I do agree with, and it kind of like frames how my first reaction to it. I do feel like it goes back to a quintessential Brad Thor style book.
Yes. Yeah.
And especially with getting those side, I mean, he always has like these side stories, but in this one, like I feel like we're going back to some of the other ones where, the side stories are almost like bigger than the Scott Harvath plot. And there's elements, I'm kind of like you, I'm a mixed bag. This is not, it's not my favorite Scott Harvath book. It's definitely not my least favorite. Like there's parts that I really, really liked.
Sure. Yeah.
And, one of the things, the first action scene we get with Solvi kicking
Oh,
ass,
dude.
like I want her and Scott. I mean, maybe that's what we're setting up for at the very end.
I
Like,
want them together.
Like exactly, and then the fact that she just gets sidelined,
yeah, dude.
right off the bat. Like after that, because that whole action scene was cool. We get to see her in action. She's an operator. Obviously, we know she's taking this desk job, but it's reiterated to us the reason that they connect is because they were both operators, and she was able to actually leave the field, and he's not.
Right.
So there's that I wanted, and like you said, you were nibbling on.
That's the stake, dude. Everything about Solvi is that beautiful porterhouse, or what I said before, ribeye. It's that beautiful steak, all the sides, everything you want. And when that action scene hits, I'm ready to dig in. I want more Solvi, loving everything about her through like the first maybe third of this book when she's kicking ass in that apartment. And Brad got to explain to us how that apartment was real. It just felt Norwegian. I don't know why. Like it felt like this is a ritzy, upscale Norwegian little neighborhood, little boutique kind of neighborhood. These big glass windows, modern architecture
on a fjord, right?
On a fjord, like it's outstanding. And then this drone blows the whole thing up, and Solvi's in that pantry with Gretchko. In my mind, and this was the other thing I really like about this plot, I don't know if I could trust Gretchko.
Right.
And you put that together with the title, Shadow of Doubt, with the cover being dark and ominous and shadowy. I'm literally wondering, is he the shadow figure? Is he orchestrating this release somehow while her prisoner? And when she kicks ass to save him, I don't know if I'm happy about that or if it's like he's playing her and he's going to turn all of a sudden.
Right. Right.
So I love the intrigue. I love the action. And Brad even told us his female characters mean a lot to him, being surrounded by strong, powerful women in his life. That comes through with characters like Solvi. She has been such a great addition to the series since Near Dark. Everything about them I loved, but we really don't see her doing much until the wedding. Like they chat a couple of times. Like there's one safe house they're at. They get to catch up. She says, I have something important to tell you. He's like, can we talk about this later? We're just kicking the can down the road. And then the wedding is a phenomenal way to wrap up. Really love the wedding scene. So it's like Solvi in the beginning, Solvi at the end are some of my favorite parts. I would have wanted more Solvi. I wanted to eat that steak the whole meal. I wanted to tear into it and finish it and keep going. But after she had her shining moment, she kind of fades. And Scott has to do that because the Ukrainian team that he's working on to catch Cybulski or to kill Cybulski, and that whole op, he wants plausible deniability. So it makes sense he wouldn't want her involved in the op at all. But she kind of disappears, and to me, that was a tough cookie to swallow.
Yeah, like I understand like how he reasons to get her off, off book, off scene, but to me, it didn't need to be done. Like, she's already like put her career at risks. She knows what she's doing is right. Who cares if she has plausible deniability with this stuff? I feel like there's no reason why she couldn't have been involved in the op to rescue this chick for Gretchko. And then the other thing I guess the big thing I have a problem with is just like the basis of the entire Gretchko plot. You
Yeah,
know,
with Anessa
it,
and getting the girl. Yeah.
in the beginning, it was cool, right? You
Yep.
say, who is this guy? He's obviously this, high up figure. Why is he defecting?
Yes.
Can you really trust him? Is it a plot?
Oh, that's
I,
the
I,
ribs.
I
That's the rack of
wanted,
ribs.
I wanted them to play on that more.
I wanted to bite into the rack of ribs. Exactly.
After that first scene, after they essentially get to that safe house, like the cottage,
Yes.
he's Scott fully trusts him, which is kind of
He
weird,
fully trusts him.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, not that he like fully trusts him, but there's never any more like doubt. Like I hate to be punny, but like there's never any more. The only other time he really comments on it is when they're at that like fancy restaurant, and he's
Mm-hmm.
like, "Stop talking to me. I don't trust you. Like I'm just here to get this girl out."
I like that too.
I don't know. What did you think about the whole idea? Like
No.
the whole purpose for Scott is to find this girl and save him because he's been blackmailed by the CIA to do this.
Yeah, well, we got to talk about the holiday haze of it all too. But you're right. That's exactly where things got stretched a little thin for me. Because Gretchko is the rack of ribs, and I want to tear into it. And I'm like, I want to know more about him. I want him to like him and Scott to really have to go at it. And we just gently touched it with the whole shut up, stop asking me questions, stop talking to me. I'm going to regret being nice to you, or I'm going to regret doing this thing for you. Like, we didn't have to get him the Russian girl. I don't know why that was such a bargaining chip that he had. It's like, it sounds like Solvi or Norwegian intelligence kind of promised him that. Kind of like, if you give us the Russian intel, if you come clean with us, we'll scratch your back. You're scratching ours. So we'll get you the girl. And Scott just had to play along because that backdoor deal was already made.
Right.
But that was a little thin. The funny thing is, I like the restaurant scene, and I really like how Sloane Ashby is brought in to be a part of it. And Ava, I love how Scott's old acquaintance,
call back to that. Yes.
A callback, and I buy into the fact that their rapport would allow him to pull on this string to kind of get Ava to go then talk to Anessa and lure her out, lure her away from her security. And then the meetup, I'm like, what's going to happen? Are they literally going to try to abscond together? Is this where Gretchko pulls the rug out from under us and completely fucks us, and he and Anessa run away? Is he going to pass intel to Anessa that she then is going to put up the rungs of Russian, government and gets to the highest levels? Is he going to signal something? And in the end, spoiler alert, he's a good guy, and Scott and him are kind of chummy, and it's kind of like, thank you for doing this. I mean,
he's not a good guy. He's playing his country for wanting to get this prostitute that he fell in love with, right? Let's not be too hyperbolic about it, but
no, but he and Scott have some conversations that are like, thank you so much. When he wants to pop the cork and give a toast and everything, and and the guys are like, we're not going to toast until the mission's over. You just get the sense that he's coming off as really positive, really chummy. He's kind of in with the group now after really giving us almost next to nothing. And in the end, what he does give us is just simply a personal vengeance side story for Scott to go on, and isn't related at all to the nukes. Like, if something Gretchko had was that tied to what was her name, Maggie at the CIA is reporting to the president her theory on the nukes, the head of the Russia House. Like, somehow I wanted that and Gretchko's defection to clash a little bit stronger, or to come together a little bit more strongly. And it never really hit that point.
No, I was going to say that. I think the weakest aspect to everything is the CIA portion of it. It almost didn't need to be there. I thought they were going to bring it around really cool when I hate to say it, when she got in like a car accident, because I thought like the Russians got to her.
Did it. Right, exactly.
But no, it was just an accident. Like, did he do that just to like throw us off a little bit? Like,
I think so. And then you have the whole thing with the president offers his suite at
Yeah, like
Walter Reed, and she's
Walter
operating out of there.
Reed.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, it was cool. And we get to see her husband cook a meal for the president. Like, little things are cool, but are they really telling a story?
Yeah, that's what
I don't know. And that's unfortunate though, because
I
another
like this
little
idea. I like
like
this
the
idea
idea.
though of
Yes.
blackmailing Scott. I really like that idea.
I was gonna say the Belarusians and the nukes in Russia putting nukes
Oh,
there, and the like the CIA
the
part that
first
I did
chapter
like
is
was
really
that.
cool.
Yeah. No, and I liked the CIA part about how she has to kind of war game the scenario out. And her boss have some really good conversations of what they're going to put in the presidential daily briefing and
Right.
what is not intelligence, like the horse thing. Again, that was like a side dish. Like, let's say, I don't know, the cornbread, right? But it's mushy in the center. I'm just keeping
Yeah.
this alive, man. Like, a really good cornbread. Come on, let's imagine a cast iron skillet cornbread with that butter, a little honey on top, piping hot. There's nothing like that, with the barbecue. Nothing like it. But then you get it, and it's like, oh, it's a little mushy, or oh, I like the burnt edges, but they're kind of soggy. You know, it was there, but it wasn't fully there. The whole horse thing was like a lot of fun. Like, is Peshkov really recalling his inner circle because he's going to test a nuke and World War III is going to go fucking bonkers and he wants all his people safe? Maybe, but it's just a theory and it had nothing to do with the story. The horse being moved, and we're tracking if Peshkov's lover is in town and if she's really with her horse and it's a fake horse. That intel thing in the depths of the CIA is really super cool. Ends up not really having anything to do with Gretchko and Salvi and Scott and killing the Russian in Monaco and blowing up his boat. And I'm like, it's a loose connection at best. So that cornbread isn't anything at all that I want it to be.
I think
Brown
you
butter,
hit the
dude.
nail on
There's no brown butter on the cornbread.
I think you just hit the nail on the head. It's the fact that we've always had where these side stories are happening, but eventually they come to a head together. And in this one, the only thing that comes together is the fact that Scott gets intel from Gretchko that two of these guys are getting recalled to, back to the Kremlin.
The
Or like
homeland.
that,
Yeah.
and then he's like, "Oh, that's interesting. I need to call the CIA about that."
Yeah.
Literally, he knows nothing about the tactical nukes being moved to Belarus.
I thought Scott would
He
have to
knows
track that shit down and like figure
right,
out where they are and how are we going to stop the attack. And he's about to push the button. Then Scott shows up, just something dramatic. And that dramatic never came.
But is it us? Because
it could be.
We just are coming off of essentially that in
Deadfall.
In Deadfall,
lots of drama, wartime drama, yeah,
lots of wartime drama where we had to, and this is bringing us back to reality in the sense of like, all right, Scott isn't James Bond. He isn't always like think about like James Reese, where like James Reese is literally the person who has to stop not only an AI from taking over the world and nukes, but also he stops a biological like disaster, whereas in this case it's a little bit more realistic, the fact that he would just be there to provide a little bit of intel while he has his own plot going, like I'm trying to rationalize myself, like, all right, are we being the ones who are being too needy, wanting Scott to be like he has been at times, obviously, and in this case, I think back to some of our favorites, like Takedown, being in New York. He doesn't actually hit all of those places. Like he's there to like, he just happens to be put in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Right.
I don't know. It's interesting, but there's definitely elements of this that I really like. I really like the cops scene, like in Paris.
They're good. They're
like
good
with this DGSI and the La Crime, like. Well, their relationship is kind of weird. But
what's her name? The woman? Yeah, it was a little weird, but I liked
Karen.
Her.
She's a Karen or Karine. Yeah.
Was that her name?
Heck was her name? It was Karen, like with the French Karen.
What was her last name?
Oh,
what's his name is great as always.
Armand.
Yes.
Oh yeah, all
Gilbert.
right.
Gilbert was the guy.
Gilbert was the
Brunel.
guy.
Brunel. Brunel.
Brunel,
That's what I'm trying.
Karine Brunel. Yeah.
They call her Brunel the whole time. Right, right.
Yes, yeah, pretty much.
I
Yeah,
liked her. You're right. She was like this old school Brad Thor. We always get these like police procedurals. And I thought she was really good at that role. She's kind of quirky.
yeah.
She looks at things differently. She kind of reads a crime scene different than everyone else.
Reminded me of like Alara, where like she can walk into a room and immediately commands like respect from
Oh,
everybody.
yeah.
Like she knows her stuff, you know?
She was a cop. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of like that. Although their relationship was weird, it's settled in the end. They both have this
Sure.
kind of professionalism about them. They both, I think, sincerely apologize for the mistakes they both made, but mostly he made. He was kind of a dick to her, but she stuck with him. So, what did you think of that? And I do want to come back to the CIA. I know you asked about the blackmail in the
Yeah,
CIA.
we'll get
To
to
wrap
that.
this up, though, what did you think of her taking the flash drive, having to decrypt it with Momo, and then eventually figuring out with the gate detection that the person who killed Jadot might have been hiding out in the archives, and ultimately it leaves them kind of on this wild goose chase where they go down into the Paris subterranean chambers. They're trying to track this guy. What did you think about basically the entire part of this book was chasing down the guy who killed Jadot?
I loved it. Like
It was good.
I really did. I thought that first of all, the I can't say it. The Jadot murder scene, amazing.
Great.
And then I like police procedural crime things where they're finding evidence, they're doing this. Obviously, there's always a cop where they take something that they shouldn't take, and like that kind of it's going to have to come back because obviously it's going to have evidence that they're going to need to use in court. They go to that one like seedy neighborhood, but they bring someone who's from the area. That's how they're able to actually get intelligence. All that was great. I think maybe there was just like a little bit too much because then it comes back around in terms of we find out that the whole reason why he was killed was because the CIA station chief in Paris was the one he was actually on the take with Russia.
Yeah, exactly.
And killed him. And then I guess that's another element where they link up because he also turns on Scott and puts Scott in danger in that way, but obviously like sets him up. We haven't even gotten to the whole, post getting the girl, like the revenge sequence of the story.
That's right. That's
definitely
right.
want to talk about that.
But that's it's going to bring us back to the CIA because what you brought up is the missing link. It is kind of what we were looking for earlier when we say it doesn't connect. And I really like that it's this Powell figure because we're introduced to him very early. I mean, the first chapter, he has mentioned that Jadot wants to pass off this intelligence, and he was a former colleague. I like their backstory. I think it was in Beirut.
Yeah.
How there was this questionable suicide in Beirut, and then Jadot was recalled as a result of it. Turns out Jadot was really onto something, and he started looking into it. So he thinks he can trust Powell because they served together at the time. He was his American counterpart over there. But even though Powell's mentioned that early, and I think they interview him, they're like, why was Jadot going to meet with you? And he goes, I don't know. He told me he wanted to meet. I think he had something for me. I thought nothing of it because I never got to see him. And, the meet never happened. So I didn't want to mess up your investigation by telling you that I had something to do with it when I really didn't because I never got the chance to meet up with him. However, he's playing the system. He is playing Brunel and Gilbert, the DGSE and DGSI guys. He's playing them because he's the guy the whole time, that they're after. And I do like how that coincides with Scott because I was questioning.
That was a big twist.
Yes, I was questioning when Scott is tracking down leads for personal vengeance against the person who was involved in Lara's killing that Gretschko gave him the name of. And the CIA comes to his aid with all of this assistance. When Powell comes in and Scott's like, damn, I might recommend this guy for, what do you say? Some service medal. Yeah, a promotion and a medal. He's like, this guy's giving me everything I need. I'm like, The CIA is just putting all these resources into a personal favor for Scott. When has the CIA
been that helpful for Scott?
Exactly. My antennae were up. I was totally wondering, what the hell is going on here? And I'm like, Brad is not going to do that to us. He's not going to have something that doesn't make sense, that wouldn't check out in the real world. Like, they're not going to do a favor for Scott like this. And ultimately, he was setting up the ambush and that car scene where they try to take down the motorcade, but then they
very
get
cool
ambushed
scene.
with the sniper in the jungle. Pretty good action scene. Yeah, I like that. And I think what I liked more was that Powell was the link. And so it led us to this whole thing where Scott captures him. Instead of torturing him, ends up realizing they can use him, and
Flips him.
he flips him. He kind of flips him, but what he does is he uses his communication network, which is his texting channel with his Russian handlers, and he capitalizes on that. And so he draws out, I forget the Russian guy's name, but he draws him out to the cafe and is like acting as if he were Powell, who is still, a lackey trying to do the Russians' dirty work. And I really liked how Scott turned the tables there. Did it make sense to have the hit on the medical clinic? Kind of a weird play, a weird procedure. It didn't seem like they were fully prepared in that medical clinic, knowing that 2 of their guys were down and injured. That was
that
like
was
tactically. Did Scott fuck that up? Because that was weird.
I think it's a play to have them say, "Oh, he's at this place," and then you're there to like Trojan horse it, but then to actually have them in the actual medical building,
and they're not really ready,
and they're not. I don't know. It was just, but he even says, Brad doesn't even like put this in there, that everything starting with the the boat scene in Monaco, like everything kicks off and like he's just running, haphazardly through all these missions. So
he's making it up as he goes. He's building the plane as he flies it. Yeah. Which goes hand in hand with all the internal monologue we get of him wondering, is he what he used to be? Should he really consider? This
is a question that I wanted to bring it up because I counted them, like 5 near-death scenes for Scott where he
makes mistakes. Lucky. He got lucky and made mistakes.
This is something we haven't really seen.
That's true.
From Brad, and I liked it.
That's true.
It's kind of showing, the cracks in his powers. He's slipping a little bit.
Sure.
This is coinciding with the same time of him thinking, should I get out? Like, am I too old for this? This entire novel, he's popping pain pills because he's recovering from his last, excursion in the Ukraine. And he's just not what he used to be. We didn't even mention the opening scene with Scott where he has to randomly take down this like drunken dude on the airplane and gets his like gets his bell rung, almost passes out.
When he got jacked up by that dude, I was like, oh, something's wrong. Like, that was just setting the stage that he's not at his best.
He's still, obviously he wins, but it's funny. He's like drinking his bourbon, wakes up. He's like waiting for, all right, any air marshals on this flight? They're going to come deal with this. No, I'm going to have to do it, aren't I?
I got to do it.
Yeah.
It was very weird though, that little fight. I was wondering how that would come in. And it kind of was like, is that why the CIA was waiting for him, or somebody, or Norwegian's intelligence service picked him up at the airport? And they're like, no, it wasn't related to that fight. I don't even know what you're talking about. So it really didn't have to do anything with anything except Scott's not as good as he used to be.
Yeah.
Like, that was the whole point.
I had the same exact idea. I thought that the guy was somehow involved with Russia to get him diverted to have to be picked up by somebody else. But in actuality, like you said, when she gets here,
it was nothing.
Like, oh no, I was already coming here.
It was a red herring.
Yeah.
There's a lot of red herrings in this one.
Yeah, interesting idea, putting this like crazy guy on an airplane. But yeah, I guess it only is there to serve a purpose for us to show that Scott getting old.
Yeah. He has his JK moment. What was with him saying at one point, maybe I'll just let Johnson track down this Russian dude who killed my wife. Like, and then he just goes, no, that was a joke. What? It wasn't a funny joke, and it was inconsequential, and I don't know why you said that. That was very strange.
Well, do you remember that when he walks in after killing, I'm blanking on the Russian dude that he kills in the boat scene.
Cebulski, yeah. So they blow up Cebulski. He comes home. He's ready to just chill. It drained on him a lot.
He's like, maybe I'll just let someone else do it. Like, I don't know. Like, I just took it as like
I guess it's a very human thing to do. Yeah.
He loves the gallows humor too. So
yeah, it's true.
I don't know. But Yeah, like and then obviously at the end, we get this scene where they're married and they're going off. And Sylvie says, let's run away.
Let's run.
Never look back.
And they open that bottle.
What do you think? What do you think is going to happen?
Dude, so if you press me, my money is on. They try to go away, but then he gets the phone call. Gary Lawler showed up at the wedding with a bottle of Pappy. Time.
I love the callback to Gary Lawler. Yes.
I love that too. Speaking of callbacks, I messed up. I'm seriously wondering if I email Brad this. I thought there was an Athena ladies reference in the book, and I was totally mixed up with Sloane Ashby.
No, Sloane Ashby was an Athena. Was she part of the Athena Project?
She wasn't in the Athena Project.
No, she wasn't.
No, she was in Act of War.
I know, but when she's introduced,
she was in the program.
War, he loops her into the program. So you weren't wrong.
Okay. So Sloane Ashby, even though not in the book Athena Project, she was in that training program.
Correct.
Or related to it. Okay.
Correct.
Because I was like, Brad seemed a little off when I mentioned the Athena ladies are here. I had thought Sloane Ashby was one of them. I think I was confused with Gretchen Wilson. And I thought she was directly in that book. But you're right. She was at least part of the program, even if not in that book. She's a great character.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, underused. Her and Palmer are normally more used than they were here. He kind of went with a different crew of people and mentions that, like North Africa. Am I just misremembering? Are we going to get to these scenes soon? Like in these, like a couple books that are coming up?
Maybe it happened already. Because when Stalin and who was the other one? Haney are around.
Because he says, which one got shot twice? This is the second time you got him.
Second time you got me shot. I think that happened. I think we saw that.
Oh, okay. I can't remember.
Even Nicholas references. He's like, oh, really? Got shot? This is the second time you did that to him, Scott. Like, there's the gallows humor. But I was getting a little confused with the people because Palmer and Ashby are on the Nice op and the Monaco op. But then it's in Paris.
They stay behind.
Then it's Stalin, Haney, and there's another guy who comes in at one point. I didn't even know if I was supposed to know him or not. Something with a P. I think he comes in. I don't even remember because
you're right. It starts with a P, but I'm blanking on it.
Priscillin or something. But there were just like one too many of those guys. And I couldn't keep them track. I'm like, what book do we know you from? I knew you've been around at some point. And they all pledge loyalty to Scott. So like,
sure,
they're not giving up on him. Like when he gets ambushed at the car, when they get ambushed at the medical center, when they're going to take down the final Russian at the house. And we were talking leadership and Scott growing and maybe getting out of the game. That was one of my favorite moments towards the very end of this book when he let Sloane Ashby take the shot. That showed the growth. That everything in this book that's been piling on for him, that was the biggest. I think that was the biggest moment of growth we've seen out of Scot Harvath in a long time.
Oh, 100%. Because as soon as you knew that there was going to be some sort of revenge element tied into this story, you're just immediately thinking back to the books, the stretch of books we're going to come to get to where he goes on this warpath.
He hunts them down. Yeah.
You think of
Backlash.
Yeah, exactly. And so, he goes into this rage and you just think that that's coming again, right? Like everything is coming back. We got a, very nice callback to Laura, get a few nice Marco moments mentioned.
Yeah. They don't come to the wedding, but it made sense that they were just in Norway and his schooling, the grandparents couldn't pull him out of school to come back to Norway for the wedding. I like that. It made sense.
Yeah.
He's still in the picture.
Still in the picture. So that's nice. But, definitely saw some growth with Scott. I think that was very, we're seeing this maturity with Scott. We're seeing this, deference, wanting to get out. I'm super intrigued to see where that goes. Is it all just a cliffhanger till book 24?
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, my money's on.
They're not going to stop making these.
They're
books,
not going to stop. I think the next one, Scott and Solvey just have to operate together. Have to rely on each other. So they might have their moment, right? Their post marriage, call it a honeymoon if you will, but their getaway when she says let's run. I think they'll get a little bit of that. I think it's rightfully earned. But no doubt, there will be that knock at the door. Someone will come calling, CIA, Carlton Group, or other, and they're right back into the action. I don't know what it's going to take, but I think it's got to happen.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. He's working on it. So,
or like a Jack Carr, he spent half of True Believer in Africa. James Reese kind of just on the down low, nobody knowing who he was, what he was doing. Could these two just run away, and could half a book or so be carried by someone else? I don't know. That would be interesting.
Yeah, very interesting.
Gone fishing.
Gone fishing.